WPCentral Podcast 135 for January 17th, 2012. Hey everybody, Dan Rubino, joined again with Jay Bennett and Rene Ritchie from what used to be the iPhone blog, but is now called iMore, who's also managing our connections and be doing the switching, but he'll be joining us as well for, well, the CES recap, as well as the big news this week, which there's actually quite a bit of breaking stuff going on. Yeah. So, everybody, how you guys doing? Well, Rene, how you're kind of doing? I saw you all last week. Jay.
Yeah, we met for the first time. It was awesome.
Yes, it was definitely nice. I actually all met each other, which was kind of nice. Well, Jay wasn't there, but
yeah, just keep rubbing it in, man, please.
Well, Vegas was kind of fun. I have to admit, coming back home was a little bit difficult, giving up limo rides and booze, but it's okay.
Oh, you didn't get limo rides, did you?
Oh, just five of them.
Dan had a margarita with a beer hat. It was stupendous.
So, Jay, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. A little bit tired, so we're going to be on Falling Asleep Jay Watch again. So, audience, if you hear the old, that's me hitting my microphone with my head. But otherwise, all well and good. I'm trusting that both of you guys have got over your Vegas hangovers.
Yeah, it was pretty much fine the next day. It was nothing that big.
I remember reading your tweets and just thinking, oh, he's having a good time.
Yeah, it was a pretty decent time, especially because there was a lot of good Windows Phone news. Now, not a tremendous amount, but there were two big announcements, and so I suppose we just will head right into that. I mean, the big news the first day was both the announcement from HTC and AT&T of the Titan 2, as well as Nokia, of course, revealing finally the Lumia 900. Yes, it does exist. Now, I want to say for the most part, all of this was expected, but HTC did surprise us with that 16 megapixel camera, which sort of snuck out of nowhere. And I know people are sort of divided. Obviously, the amount of megapixels technically doesn't matter for the quality of the camera. It's more about the lens and the sensor type. Although I would argue that the Titan 2, or in the Titan 1 for that matter, has an excellent sensor. I still think it's probably the best camera available today on Windows Phone. And it crushes the Nokia Lumia, which is kind of shocking. But I agree, 16 megapixels is a bit of a marketing gimmick. Yeah. And they basically admitted that. But I'm okay with the marketing gimmick. We need one. So.
Man, and this is the weird thing about this device. It wasn't a particularly well kept secret. We kind of knew it was coming, and yet at the same time I was surprised by it. And when I look back over it now, I think, well, what was I surprised about? Because it's the same Super LCD screen that we loved. It's the 60 meg camera is the only thing which is different. The front facing camera I don't think has changed. The processor hasn't even changed, has it? So with the exception of LTE, which obviously is a big deal for you guys, there's not an awful lot new about this Titan, and yet somehow it feels like it's a new exciting device that we should all be salivating over. I don't know how you felt when you played with it.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing. So the way HTC is going to be dealing with this isn't replacing the Titan. So that's important for people to remember. Your old Titan is still very relevant. They're going to be selling both these devices side by side. They're just going to be sort of marketing them a bit differently. So the Titan 1 is going to be like your standard Windows Phone, whereas the Titan 2 is going to be considered like the high-end premium version, which will offer the LTE and the 16 megapixel camera. And so in that regard, it's sort of an interesting strategy. They probably almost should have called it the Titan LTE or Titan 4G or something like that. But obviously,
or the Titan S.
Yeah, they already ran into this problem, though. They called the Titan 1 a 4G phone. So that's sort of an issue for them. But it's important to note the Titan 2 is also redesigned a bit. And I really like the design changes. It does make it feel more like a little bit of a premium phone. The curved glass near the bottom, the so-called chin, is a really interesting design innovation, mostly because the screen itself is part of that. So towards the end of the screen, it'll actually kind of ramp up and curves up. And it's actually a curved piece of glass. And I thought that was kind of really nice.
Same kind of curve as on the Lumia 800, or are we talking a bit more?
No, this is like a ski ramp. This doesn't curve around the edges. It's just at the bottom. There's like a chin that kind of goes up,
just to fit in your sort of cheek.
Right.
Yeah.
It actually feels really nice when you're using it because as you hold it, it actually gives you something for your right hand to sort of grip better. And so it actually feels, like I said, a really nice design.
So here's my question to you then. When HTC came out, or AT&T rather, came out and announced this, I think I remember what my first thought was, what the price range is going to be. Where they're going to price this. Where do you see AT&T pricing this, and how much is too much to charge for what is not a big premium jump, really, a camera?
I only think, I mean, we're only going to talk, I believe, a $50 difference. Now, HTC wouldn't say what the difference. There is going to be difference. It's going to be priced differently. I can't say, is the Titan 1 going to drop down to $150 and they're going to sell this for $199, or are they going to keep the Titan 1 at $199 and sell this for $250? I do not know, but it's going to be.
What would you do if you were in that position?
I think the smarter thing would be to sell it for $199, but it is kind of a premium device, so they may try to go for that $250 mark. I don't know. It's a really tough choice, but companies are aggressively marketing. Just because it's $250 on AT&T doesn't mean too much, with Firefly and Amazon.com and Costco always offering it cheaper. It's almost a moot point. So I'm not really too concerned about the price, but it's a nice design. They really did a nice job with that.
Dan, how do you recommend one now? If someone came to you and said, which one should I get? Are you going to always, go big or go home? Or is there a value prop in the lower one?
No, so that's a tough. Now, let's talk about the Lumia 900. So later on that day, of course, Nokia finally announced the 900. I was conveniently front row for that, which is kind of nice.
Convenient.
And conveniently.
That was so organized.
It totally was. But so the 900 came out. Beautiful device, 4.3-inch screen. It has a 1.3 megapixel front-facing camera, which finally people wanted. It also has a low aperture front-facing camera. And I want to point out
which you got really impressed with as well, I remember.
Here's the deal.
You're really keen on this.
Well, because when we were on one of the last nights, we were out at Tao, which I kind of like saying I was at Tao. It's a really famous restaurant in New York City and nightclub. Right. But I was showing people asked me, what's better, the Focus S or the Titan? Which would you recommend? And I showed them how both phones have their strengths and weaknesses. For instance, the Titan, its rear camera is top-notch. Nothing comes close to it. A Focus S is pretty good, but the lower aperture in the back lit sensor on the Titan just works so much better in a dark environment than the Focus S, which does a nice job, but trust me, the Titan 2 is way brighter. Switch to the front-facing camera, though, Focus S wins. The Focus S has a lower aperture front-facing camera, and it's literally night and day between that and the Titan. So it's a tough choice. Now, I don't use the front-facing camera very often, so it's not that big of a deal. But clearly that low aperture, for me, made all the quality difference between the two. So if I could take the front-facing camera to Focus S and put it into the Titan, it would be the most amazing device. Now, that's what I'm hoping with the 900, with that low aperture front-facing camera, because it really does make a big difference as far as the quality of the image being presented. And we haven't actually seen this, what it looks like, but that's the theory behind it. So,
so the theory is that and even in the lower light as well is the key thing, isn't it? Which makes sense.
Now, I'm a little so far underwhelmed by Nokia's camera performance, which is weird, kind of to say that because of the Carl Zeiss stuff. I think some of it's software. But the Lumia 800, I'm not that impressed with as far as the camera goes. Now, they said they're going to try to fix that a bit, and I hope they do. So I'm really hoping that the camera optics have been sort of upgraded a little bit with the 900, but it's something we'll just have to do side-by-side test with. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because Nokia, I don't know, I never quite understand. It seems to be a thing in America mostly, where people always think Nokias have amazing cameras, because it's not a common perception across the pond, if you like, over here. There was the N8, which had this fantastic quality camera, high megapixel camera, and a decent quality lens and sensor. To be honest, if I look back through all the Nokia phones that I've owned in the past, I can't point to one which had a particularly amazing camera. I've never had a good one. I've always had better cameras on the Sony Ericssons that I've owned in the past and seen better on Samsung, for example. The Lumia is definitely a step up from the Omnia 7 that I had, but I wasn't going into it expecting a near perfect camera. And it seems to be something which, I don't know if it's just an American thing, but Americans always seem to really expect that the Nokias are going to have fantastic quality.
It's the Carl Zeiss name.
Cameras.
Is it the glass, Dan? Like, it sounds like it has good glass. So maybe the signal processor.
Yeah, the glass should be pretty top notch. But like I said, HTC has done a really good job with that BIS sensor that they have. That really has made a huge difference. So it's a combination of factors, and Surprisingly, HTC's done a remarkable job, and so I don't want to discount how good their cameras have gotten. Even on the radar, I find their radar camera to be one of the best I've used, even on a mid-range device. Compared to I have another device that came out this week, of course, is the Lumia 710. I really like this phone in a lot of ways. It's got some really nice aspects to it. The camera, in well-lit conditions, works well. And it's actually a large camera. It's got a bit large aperture, but because it doesn't have this backlit sensor, it's really terrible in low-light conditions. I mean, it comes nighttime in a dark room or stuff like that. The radar will absolutely crush it. And so that's disappointing for an otherwise really nice device. But it doesn't mean people shouldn't buy the 710. I think, like I said, I've taken some really nice images during the day in well-lit conditions, which makes the 710 camera really well. But it's that quality difference in low light conditions that really matters. So
see, I couldn't tell because the video you shot was of Phil Nicholson, and there's just no camera in the world that can really make a fair test on him.
Right. So we did get the video sample of the Titan 2 at 720p, and it was pretty decent. Now everybody's asking why not 1080, and that's a Windows Phone OS limit right now. So that's nothing HTC can really work on. Look for that in Apollo to change, but that's the difference. Now, I will say, Rene, let's go back to your question. Which do I recommend, the Titan 2 or the 900? Extremely difficult. I can't actually answer that, and I'm likely in a position I'm going to get both phones. Well, I mean,
the 900 comes in blue, man. What else do you want?
But it's not just that, Dan. The thing that I think is going to be hard is like people might get a discount 800, or they might get the discount Titan because they think it's good enough as opposed to the top of the line.
And they're going to get the same experience in a lot of ways, right? And that's what's nice about this. OS is going to be the same on any device they pick up, and experience will be the same. And that's what's really nice about our system. I will say, if we want to talk about which I think will do better, and as far as marketing and which will really sell the name, it's of course the Lumia 900. That cyan color, the blue, is just gorgeous, especially on that size. It's a pretty big device too. I don't want to. The 900 compared to the Focus S, it's quite a bit bigger. And I don't mean in thickness. Of course, it's going to be thicker. I mean in terms of actual dimensions. It is a bigger device because of that body. That's not a criticism. I'm just saying for those who are curious.
Well, you've got a 4.3-inch screen on it, haven't you?
Right. Well, they both have 4.3-inch. So the Focus S is 4.3-inch too. So they should be kind of identical. But because of the polycarbonate, that well-designed body, it's a little bit chunkier. Like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's just saying that when you see it in people's hands, you're like, that looks huge. It really is kind of a big device. It stands out.
Speaking of which, actually, Wes Smith has just asked a question in the chat room that I wanted to ask as well. Does the 900 have the same rounded glass as the 800 does?
No, it does not. It's flat.
It doesn't. No. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, but the sides are still quite curved. I mean, that's still the same design principle there.
Right. The actual body is very similar to the 800 with the curved roundness and then the chopped off ends, basically. So that's the same. They also got rid of the pop-up battery doors, which
this thing here, which I'm pretty sure is going to break in about a month.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that little
the 1 week flaw.
So they did do some better designs. The micro USB is completely exposed now, like most normal phones, and the micro SIM card, you need the little pin to unlock it. So I actually agree with those design choices. I think they're much better. It's a great device. It's going to sell. When you put this phone on the table, and Rene could speak to this because he was there with me during the interview, it just it begs for you to pick it up and look at it. It really, especially that blue color with the blue tiles, it's such a perfect match. Rene, do you want to talk about your experience with it?
Yeah, I was going to say, Rene and I were talking offline, and Rene was saying he's got a bit of device envy.
Yeah, no, I've got a little bit of lust in my heart. I mean, it's true. I got to be Dan's cameraman for his interview, and it was...
What a job.
No, well, first it was a phenomenal interview, Dan. I mean, total kudos on that. But the device itself, it's something almost out of science fiction. Nokia will brag about, all the materials they used and the years of research and the ergonomics and the careful design. But everyone says that. Everyone always says it feels good in the hand. Nokia's, it really looks like a bit of science fiction. Like they took some sort of meteorite material that's hard as steel, but made of plastic, and it's super seamless and smooth. And I could just see Dan grinning when he saw that thing. It was just such a beautiful, people say the iPhone is an object art, but really that Nokia thing belongs in a museum.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's going to be a device that when people see it in public, it's going to really command attention. And I think that's really what Windows Phone needs. We need that flagship device. Yeah. And people are looking for that quote unquote hero device, the one that's really going to get us noticed. And rest assured, the Lumia 900 is that phone. I think it's going to do very well. We saw on stage the CEO of AT&T, De La Vega. We saw the CEO of Microsoft, of course, Steve Ballmer, and Stephen Elop from Nokia. Those three on stage, which, by the way, I have a brilliant photo of that I'll put up sometime. That was a huge signal. I mean, you don't get those three guys on the same stage next to each other, all holding that phone. So all those things we heard about them heroing device and AT&T really backing us, and it's going
to be true.
That's going to be very true. You don't see AT&T coming out and just, backing a device that publicly.
And they're stupid if they don't. I mean, if you're going to do a hero device, that's the one you want to do this year.
Absolutely. Right. So that doesn't mean the Titan 2 is not a good phone. Like, I'm in that privileged position. I'm going to definitely have both. But
I mean, device stack.
Look at the hate in Jay's eyes.
Yeah.
There's no hate. Okay, just the Dan asked me 2 weeks ago. Even was I jealous of the phone? At the time, I wasn't, and then they announced it, and I thought, oh, the screen would be a bit bigger, and oh, yeah, front-facing camera might be quite nice. And then I just looked at mine and thought, I've basically got the same phone, the same design, but somehow I feel like I could just upgrade it a little bit. There's just this little thing that I'm missing.
Dan's has a red cape on it. That's the only difference.
my personal opinion on this matter. So I have the 800, although I'll have to send it back for me. And of course, I have the 710. Both of those 3.7-inch screens. And by the way, the 710 screen is really nice. Well, it has one flaw, which is it's very oil prone, but the clear black polarizer that they put over the screen that reduces glare is phenomenal. Like, the 710 screen is like really, really nice. I really like it. Having said that, 3.7-inch is too small for me. It works. I'll use it, but then every time I go back to like my Focus S with a 4.3-inch, I feel much, much more comfortable. And so the Lumia 900 with that 4.3-inch screen for me is going to be that real sweet spot. And let me tell you about that screen. I've seen some really nice screens before in devices. That screen is phenomenal looking. I mean, it is just...
Is it 800 good? Or because I remember when you came back from the Nokia event, you said when people see the 800, it's the best screen you've seen.
It is. The 800 is good, but this beats the 800 screen because it doesn't have the pentile matrix. It doesn't have the pentile matrix, so it looks even clearer.
Can you really notice?
Yeah, and it's so sharp and contrasty that it really popped out at you. Even I think Joe Belfiore during the interview was like looking at it, like you notice how bright it was. It's
as if he hasn't got one at home, just waiting for him.
Yeah. He's got one in each pocket.
So it's a.
Are those Windows phones in your pocket?
It's a pretty big deal, though. I think we can feel very happy. Now, let's talk about the other carriers, of course. If you're on T-Mobile, you have the 710 and Radar. Now, both are great phones, but I mean, let's be honest. It's pretty tough. It's pretty tough to be on the sidelines watching what AT&T is getting, the Titan 2, the Focus S, and the Lumia 900. Those are all killer devices. So it's going to be pretty tough. Verizon and Sprint also. Now, there was that stupid rumor a couple weeks ago that Sprint was going to get 3 new phones. I said at the time that I thought that was rubbish. I heard from a pretty good analyst, which I'm not going to name, that Sprint was even talking to Nokia. They weren't even in the talks. Now, I think Verizon was. But what happened was AT&T got the exclusive on the 900. What that really means for those wondering, that's a deal between the OEMs and the carriers where basically the OEMs sell the phone to the carrier at a certain range. The carrier has the option of paying more for an exclusive for a certain amount of time. And AT&T seems to be very keen on locking out the other partners. Now, T-Mobile is interesting because perhaps they didn't get these big-end devices, like the high-end devices, because of the impending merger. And so they didn't see the need to make a redundancy. But obviously that merger fell through. So now I think T-Mobile may be left holding the bag there. So,
and for those of us who are not you, Dan, is there a word on international availability yet?
No. So we actually asked Nokia direct that. And, I knew what the answer was going to be. When you're at these events, I know people are like, why don't you ask them this? Why don't you ask them that? Because when you deal with these people, like, they're on topic. They are on message. They're going to talk about AT&T. They're going to talk about what's in front of you, not what's coming down the road. They don't want to talk about that stuff.
You want to ask them questions they might actually answer.
Right.
We did get something in the form of that Nokia Lumia map, which sort of told us where the 910 might be going in the future.
Yeah, my gut tells me the 900 will be exclusive on AT&T for a certain amount of time. Someone said 45 days, maybe up to 3 months, and then you will see it roll out worldwide. Kevin Shields did hint that, he's like, it's a great device. There's no reason why we wouldn't want this to go worldwide. So I think it'll happen. I don't, but AT&T will have it for at least, I think, a month or two before anybody else. So
they're not going to turn down their national.
The chat room's just complaining that I said 910. Yeah, I meant to say 900. I was thinking of the 710. Yeah.
I've called it the 810 before, so it's okay.
I'm tired.
Well, I don't know if it's time to talk about it or not, Dan, but one of the things that you did get out of the interview that you actually really astutely asked was how they were competing versus, carriers flooded with Android. And their answer was sort of, we think we have a better product, and we think when you buy some of those devices, they're going to frustrate the hell out of you. You're going to come back and buy a Windows phone and enjoy yourself for a while.
Yeah, and I think combined with Nokia's media savviness and ability to market, and just the fact that it looks very different, I think they're going to have a good shot at this. And they do have a lot of work ahead, and they're not underestimating their work. When you talk to these folks, you don't get the impression that they're living in a bubble, that they're like, oh, our device is so great, it's just going to naturally sell itself. They're well aware of what they're up against and what they have to do. And so they're very much in the reality of this situation. Now, I am happy. I barely watch TV. I don't have cable, but I do get to see TV when I'm working with my patients. And so I've already seen the Lumia 710 commercials. I think it was like last week. I was Wednesday and Thursday already starting to show up. And so it's that whole advertising campaign is kicking off. It was really interesting to see those commercials starting to roll already. And so Nokia is going to do a good job with this stuff. I can't imagine what it's going to be like for a 900, but it's going to be pretty huge.
Okay, so we've talked the devices to death. I think we can probably fair to say. I want to know, particularly from Rene, if you were in any of these at them as well, what were the keynotes like? I mean, do you think the message that was coming across from Microsoft? I know that what we got from the interview was very good. I've watched the interview myself. But I want to know, how did the keynotes come across? Was it a positive message? Was Nokia quite focused on the 900? Was there a lot of Symbian talk?
I only got to watch them streaming because Dan was the only one with the limousine styling VIP access to most of these events. I did get to see Kevin Michaluk do his Steve Ballmer impression, and I think Dan almost killed him for that. But I think they were fantastic. I mean, they were exciting. They had all their ducks in the row. For the first time, I think AT&T, Microsoft, Nokia, even HTC were giving the same message, on the same talking points. And generally, it seems like this was, people talk about, when Android came out finally with the Droid. This to me feels like that moment for Windows Phone where everyone is shooting on the same cylinder. Everyone has got their act together at the same time.
Interesting. That's quite an interesting thing to hear from your perspective as well, Rene, because I was quite curious. A lot of people said there was a lot of noise at CES this year, and it's quite difficult to, I think, for any company to break through the noise and to be the key point of CES. And, we can point to this blog or this magazine has said the 900 was the device to watch. It was the best device of CES. But really, the best device of CES is what you're looking for.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing
got a
for
really
me
strong message
is that this is the first time I've seen designers are a particular sort, and they've been smitten with iOS for a while because, Android doesn't let you do pixel perfect UI, and Windows Phone Palm has been struggling, and Windows Phone was still coming up. A bunch of collective fanboys lost it when they saw the Nokia the Lumia 900. For the first time, there was real excitement for a device that was coming from Microsoft, and they can't wait to get their hands on it. And you can't buy publicity like that.
No, that's very true. That's all about design. And with this Nokia case, and that is the thing. It's that slightly unique, slightly premium feel where. And people are going to look at it in the store and think, oh, there's a reason that I want to pick up this device. And, as it turns out, this operating system is the best one out there.
And Dan also asked really good questions to Joe. I'm going to pronounce his name wrong. Belfiore, is that it?
Belfiore,
yeah. And he knows the answers. Sometimes you get the corporate guy who's a stuffed suit that was the next manager in line for the promotion, and there's been that at every company. But he was knocking down questions from application space to ecosystem to design, and he knew every pixel on that screen. And to me, when you have a guy that loves a device in charge, that's when things start to become magical.
Yeah. What was your impression of Belfiore and Shields actually, as we're talking on the interview? What did you make of them as the first time perhaps you'd met them or seen them talking?
that me or Dan?
That's for you, Rene.
Oh, I know. Like I said, I thought they were really fantastic. They clearly love their products. I mean, they were both smiling from ear to ear because they knew they had something really hot on their hands. And Belfiore has that look in his eye about someone who really is. He knows the code, he knows the design, he knows the end product. And you know, Microsoft doesn't make the whole widget. They're not like a RIM or an Apple where they make the entire phone. They have to rely on partners being good too. And you could tell that their approach, where it's not completely locked down to one device, but it's not open to every device imaginable, is really paying off because they're achieving a really good device on several fronts, not just on one front.
Daniel, how did you think they came across in the interview this time around? Because obviously you've met Joe before, have you?
No, I've seen him numerous times at these events, but it's the first time we're actually formally introduced. So no,
okay.
I mean,
So
they're great guys. Oh no, I mean he's what you expect him to, and if you ever see him in interviews and stuff, you know, very forthcoming, knows exactly what he's talking about. Doesn't come across as a suit, which is nice. You know, I said this before. A lot of the Microsoft guys are very much they're kind of informal. They don't come across as these like you know, businessmen. They come across as, you know, phone and software and hardware guys who know what they're talking about and are interested in the consumer experience very much. And so, you know, I feel real confident having these, you know, people like him, Kevin Shields, behind, you know, the scenes working on this stuff. So
I've always said, Belfiore, I would buy anything from that man. It's just one of the things he sells it with this honest look in his eyes and a bit of a smile. And I think I would just happily go and buy a lawnmower, and I don't even have a garden off him. It's that kind of situation.
He's a good presenter too.
He really is, and he's absolutely the right person to be behind the Windows Phone platform. And it would be good to sort of see actually. It would be good if Microsoft perhaps had that figure, that person selling you the phone in the adverts, even or in publicity a bit more, rather than it sort of being from the faceless Microsoft. I think in a way, having a face makes a company a bit more of a relatable entity, and it's something that you can start to invest in as more than just a product, you know, as a bit of a lifestyle, and starting to invest in the ecosystem. And I think putting a face would you know, do a great service to that. And I think if his face was the one around, people were going to start buying these phones more so than they already are.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But that's just me. Okay, we're going to talk about a couple of other devices. Just quickly, the Acer Allegro and the ZTE Tanya. Dan, you got a chance with these ones, did you?
Yes, yeah. In fact, I just heard that the Tanya has been announced for the UK. So the Tanya is the one I really, really liked. It was actually by ZTE, a big company. They're actually one of the fourth largest producers by volume of smartphones in the world, mostly because of the Asian markets. And this phone is actually really nice. It's kind of like a Focus 2 almost, for those who ever wanted a device. And it had a nice little chrome accent to it and just a well-built design. It felt classy, actually, which is something you know, it's going to be, it may sound kind of wrong, but you don't really expect from sort of the lower tier, you know, OEMs out of Asia. But I actually, out of all the devices, that one actually impressed me the most. Now, it only has 4 gigs of storage, which in reality translates like 2.5 gigs. And so the specs weren't anything to, you know, to drool over. But those are things that could be retooled for a different market. Now, I had a 4.3-inch screen, which is really nice, and the camera is pretty decent. And the phone felt great in the hand. So they just work on the internals a bit. That could be a pretty popular device. Now, ZTE has announced that they are trying to push into the United States. That's a difficult thing to do because of our carrier system. And they don't have a big relationship so far with the carrier, so that's a hurdle that they'll have to overcome. But I kind of hope they do. I'm rooting for them. I did get to play with the LG fashion phone there, which now I forgot the name of. Sanders, Jill Sander.
The Jill Sander phone, the all design and no content.
Yeah, I'm actually glad I skipped buying that on an impulse buy, because that was one of the cheapest phones I've ever had the displeasure of holding. It really felt like a toy, and it was unusually thick, considering you're not getting much with it. I don't mind it. I can accept the device is thick if you get like an awesome camera, huge battery, or something ridiculous in it. But there's nothing remarkable about this device whatsoever. The screen was okay. I mean, the color contrast was nice, so that was something working in its favor. And it had physical keys, but they were very plasticky. You know, LG, we stopped by the LG booth, and I I don't know if I took any photos. They didn't have a single Windows phone out on display. It was all Android. And I spoke to one of the LG people. They're like, yeah, no Windows phones. Sorry. And they were basically just kind of like, yeah, no big deal,
LG
whatever.
Given up.
Yeah, and I kind of just wanted
because they didn't do very well with their first set of devices. If we're being honest, I know one person with a LG Optimus, and it's nothing to write home about. The screen quality is okay. The physical buttons are quite nice because it's a bit of a change, and the camera is actually fairly reasonable on it. But it's nothing to really write home about. And I think that because LG didn't put any marketing out there, they've just sort of given up on the game.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. The Quantum on AT&T was an interesting device. It's one it's one of the only few QWERTY devices, right? And it was a very solid phone. I always liked the heavy metal feel to it. I felt like I could bludgeon someone with it. It was a bit thick, but it also had a nice rounded feel to it. It's actually a pretty nice device. And LG software was pretty impressive. Let's not forget there were a few OEMs that embraced augmented reality right out the gate. They had 2 apps, Scan Search and Metro Scanner, I believe it was called, that used the camera as a augmented reality app. So that was impressive. So I kind of feel bad. LG clearly came out the gate trying, but as you point out, their hardware was not really that compelling.
It just didn't scream at you, did it?
No, and I'll be honest, I don't have confidence that they can produce hardware that is compelling. So I'm not really that sorry to see them go. We keep hearing years ago that LG is going to be a big player with Microsoft and everything. Keep trying, but their devices just kind of really fail, and I'm almost okay with that. With HTC, Nokia, and Samsung, and even ZTE. The ZTE device for me was way better than LG. And that really says something. I'm okay with LG sitting this one out. They're not even like Dell. Dell, at least with the Venue Pro, was trying something new.
Dell, you want back.
Yeah, well, Dell was at least trying something new. Clearly they needed some more practice, but it was at least a compelling device. The LG, just go back and rethink things, man. So what else was there?
And the Acer Allegro, tell us about that one quickly.
Yeah, Acer Allegro, that was a nice device. There was nothing exciting about it. It's a pretty standard black slab Windows phone. I can't really say anything great or bad about it. The screen was okay. It was a little bit washed out. Same thing with the Toshiba, the IS-12T I finally got to play with, which was interesting. That's that pink phone in Japan that's waterproof, dustproof, and has 32 gigs of memory as well as a 13 megapixel camera. I mean, it's a cool phone. It's not an amazing phone. The buttons were really tiny on it. They're physical keys, so that was kind of neat. The screen was okay. I would compare it to the HTC Arrive or the 7 Pro. That is, it's a screen, but it's kind of washed out too. It was nothing really amazing. The camera was okay on it. It was a nice device. I'm glad for Japan. It's definitely an interesting phone, but I'm not that jealous anymore. Of some of these devices.
Let's quickly talk then about the smoking competition, or as I put it in the script because it reminded me, smoking. And we had an interesting challenge that was put out at CES. I forget the guy's name. Was it Ben Rudolph? I want to say something along those lines. I forgot the guy's name. I'll get it up on the site. But effectively, the challenge was that Windows Phone could do anything faster than any other device, which is a pretty big claim. And there was technicalities behind what this claim was. The claim was you could get in, you could get it done, you can get out, and your interaction with the phone would be done. What it could carry on doing in the background was a whole other story, but the time it takes you to get there and just think, okay, that's it dealt with, that would be it. It would be over. Did you get to go and see the booth, either of you guys?
Which booth is it? The Microsoft booth?
The Smoked by Windows Phone challenge.
Oh, Smoked by Windows. Sure, yeah. Actually, I have video of Ben doing one of those competitions, and I spoke to him for a couple minutes and stuff. It was a really interesting event, and it was fun.
I like that you used the words interesting there, because that's exactly what I thought about it.
I mean, they did well, though.
Yeah, it was a brilliant idea, and it definitely got attention. It got publicity, and I think it was the right kind of attention and publicity. It was a fun event. Ben's a great guy. If you ever get to meet him, just really enthusiasm outstanding, but he's not a jerk. And that's like, and I want to point that out, not because I expect Microsoft people to be jerks, quite the opposite. But I'm saying for the position he was in, I mean, now he's an evangelist position, so his job is to go out there and promote these things. But this competition could have been handled very wrongly.
Even a couple of years ago, it might have been.
Yeah, and but what was neat about it was the people who were challenging him. It was a very friendly tone to everything. There was no rubbing in people's faces. It was all done with good laughs. There were incentives both for winning and losing. It was fair. You know, if you went up and challenged, you guys, it was funny to see them negotiate what they were going to exactly do. Because some people come up with be like a very specific task that they say, oh, I'm going to do this. And he's like, well, come on. You know, the idea is to do stuff that people would do every day on their phones, not like some really crazy thing. And it was fun to watch them negotiate and then finally agree to a challenge and then do it. And so it was a fun event. I thought it put Windows Phone in a good light. And it was fun watching those videos. And it was nice to see. Now, I asked
Rene,
Ben...
were you tempted to go over, by the way? I just had to ask.
Unfortunately, I didn't get a second to go over there, but I did get to see several of them. And the thing that it was legit. I mean, like you could. It wasn't one of these stage things. It wasn't overly marketing. It was like an old-fashioned Pepsi challenge, and it was almost like those Zen of Palm days, where they actually on Windows Phone they made an effort to make things easy to get to, and it paid off for them with this campaign.
Now, I asked Ben whether or not they're going to do this for future events, because it seemed like kind of a neat idea. And he seemed kind of reluctant because people may start gaming the system a bit. They're going to start figuring out what are the weaknesses of Windows Phone and just doing that. Or he's worried that people will start loading custom ROMs on their Androids and really sort of, you know, writing scripts to help things. And that could happen, of course. You know, so you do want to kind of...
Macros on Android.
Yeah. I mean, things that could happen. So you don't want to, you know, have this turn into an ongoing event.
Because it becomes ugly at that point.
Yeah, and so I'd rather see Microsoft, and I think and I'm confident they can do this, continue to innovate and do other sort of publicity and challenges and things. It seems like so far at every event, they've done something really unique to gain attention and get positive media coverage. I'm confident they'll continue to do that. So, but it was definitely a lot of fun to see this.
Okay, so a quick word then, of course, and I'm quite interested to get Rene's perspective on this. This was, as we all knew and announced way before, that this would be Microsoft's last CES event. And from this point on, we believe they're going to go and start doing their own thing, maybe have their own trade shows. And I particularly wanted to get Rene's point of view on this because obviously Apple haven't been showing anything at CES for, have they ever? I think it's been 3-4 years, was it? Or they
maybe
never
the
have.
Apple II, I don't remember.
It's something, yeah, it's been some time ago. And I was actually, there's a couple of things that I wanted to sort of put to rest or get your guys' opinions on. First of all, did it feel like it was Microsoft's last? Do you feel like it was going out with a bang, or was it kind of a bit of a whimper?
I don't know how Dan found his way around that booth. It's one of the biggest booths I've ever seen. If you count like Xbox and Windows Phone and Windows and on and on. I mean, it was like a small city.
Yeah, if I get the energy, I have photos of everything, and I'll do a recap post, which I should have done days ago, but it takes a while to edit all these photos.
You've got another post to make first.
Yeah.
Microsoft's presence was massive, and it was impressive. It was a big presentation, and with all their technology, and people were interested, and that was the neat thing. They had a whole section with just their upcoming Ultrabooks and notebooks and laptops.
It was packed. Every day it was packed.
Yeah, and I understand why. Some of those computers were really compelling. Everybody kept going, oh, some of those are just straight Apple ripoffs. But hey, you know what? Everybody's been saying ripoff.
Not true. They had a VGA port on that Ultrabook.
Right, sure. So everybody's been saying for these, OEMs for these laptops to become more Apple-like, and they're doing it, and they're coming out really nice. I was really impressed. Skype was there, of course, with their little Skype booth, which Microsoft now owns. I'm proud to say that for you home people using Skype, it's going 1080p pretty soon. They have the betas there, and we're able to try it out. So that's going to be pretty impressive. They also have Skype for your TV now, which is kind of nice for smart TVs that have a camera built in. They'll be able to use that. So, and I spoke to them about Skype and what their plans were. And it sounds like, to be honest, I asked about Xbox. And they said they're still kind of in planning stages about how to do this.
It's got to happen.
That's kind of surprising, I think, for many. But obviously, Microsoft is thinking carefully about how to do this. They're not just want to we bought Skype, quick, put something out. They're thinking smartly about how to integrate all this together to make it as one ecosystem.
And there was no Xbox 720. Don't believe the rumors.
No. But
that's for E3.
Although it was their last CES, it was a very impressive display of where everything's going. They even had a nice Windows Phone booth, which I'll put photos up, where people could go and try the phones, and Microsoft employees were there to explain and show them off the features and stuff. It was kind of an interesting, your own presentation.
It's going to be sad because next year Dan and I are going to show up and it'll be a big Dish Network booth, and it's not going to be the same.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know what my experience will be there like next year. I hope it's not as like Rene's, where it's just cases, which definitely was not the problem this year for Windows Phone, but maybe next year.
But I think, to go back to Jay's question, I think that Microsoft is gotten to the point where Apple, like not in terms of growth, Microsoft is massive, but just in terms of their mindset, where they want to control their own message more, and they want to be on their own timetable, and they're doing all that. They have their Mix events, their Build events. They're putting Microsoft stores on every street corner. I think they're going to put one in the lobby of a Starbucks soon, and they're going to be able to have, the same way Apple does, millions of people having direct contact with Microsoft, and they can disintermediate all these massive trade shows and not have to worry about someone stopping at the Ford booth. They'll talk to them directly.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. They don't want to lose the message and get. Now, luckily, the Lumia 900 did steal the show, and partly that's because all the rest of the stuff was so underwhelming. But it won numerous awards. And, it really caught everybody's attention. Everybody's saying it's the biggest device that was announced.
Well, there were 28 Android devices, but I don't think any of them really stood out. I think they were smart to only have a couple hero devices. Right.
And so at least this time they went out with, getting their message out there. But it's true. They're going to start doing their own events. And I think it's a smart decision. They control the message. They get all the media attention. Android's been good with this. They position their announcements opposite Apple. I think, Rene, you spoke about that before.
Yeah, the counter program.
And so I think that whole idea is actually, it's smart. And Microsoft has stuff to talk about now, so why not?
And the other thing that's interesting with Microsoft is that they really are bigger than anyone can ever imagine. And as much as the Microsoft booth was huge, there were Microsoft people all over the Ford booth for Sync and at other automotive. I mean, they have their embedded system still. Their Sync stuff is fantastic. They're still making robot OSs. So, I mean, even if they're not physically at CES, their products are going to be there for a long time.
Right, that's a very good point. And I'm quite interested to see what they'll do in terms of, we haven't heard anything about Mix this year yet, or if it's if it's even happening, which is a bit of a shame because I was hoping to book some time off and try and make my way to Vegas. But I'm quite curious to see if Mix is actually going to fall by the wayside and they're going to move away from having this developers conference and actually have a new thing next year, which will be designed for developers and for consumers as a Microsoft Media Summit or a show of some kind. I'm quite interested to see what their message is going to be. Are they going to start carry on with the catering for developers, which Microsoft, let's face it, are very famous for. That's one of the best relationships they have is with people who develop for their platforms. I mean, ASP.NET, everywhere with Microsoft.
Well, we can at least point out that this week it was announced WP DevCon, the first independent developer conference dedicated solely to Windows Phone was announced. That's going to be in October in San Francisco. That's just starting up now to get organized. They're looking for speakers and sponsors, but that looks like it's a go. It's put on by a group that puts on other dev conferences, one for Android and I believe one for iOS as well. And so this is a big event. This is going to be, I think it's 3 days, and it's the first time an event that's taking place that's not Microsoft sponsored directly. And so it goes to show you that finally it's starting to grow and take off enough that sponsors feel it's wise to put on a 3-day event. Now, this will be for new developers as well as intermediary and advanced, and they're going to have all different types of sessions on concentrating on different aspects. So we'll be there to cover it. I'm going to try to get Raphael to go with me since he lives like an hour away by flight.
Nice.
So, yeah, and at least we'll have his expertise on board because when it comes to meme programming, probably not too hot of an idea to get me right on all that stuff. But so we definitely 2012 is going to be a big year for Microsoft, and this is a continuation of that. So we'll have to see with Mix. I think Mix will happen. I don't see why it wouldn't, but we need to see what dates could be announced and everything. And of course, next month, for those that are listening, Mobile World Congress takes place at the end of February, going into March. That takes place in Barcelona, Spain, and will for the next, I think, 10 years. They just re-signed a deal or something like that. So we'll be there for that. Mobile World Congress, for those of you curious, is the largest mobile show in the world. Last year, I believe they had 60,000 people attend, which is it's a pretty good-sized town of people showing up all to talk about phones. It's a massive event. Microsoft will be there. HTC will be there. HTC considers it to be one of their major shows. That should be a little hint for some of you guys. Nokia will be there, I'm pretty positive, in which case we'll probably see more than 900 announcements maybe for the international market as well. So that's pay attention next month.
And we just got confirmed for GDC in March as well. So that's the Game Developer Conference. And last time Microsoft had a big booth there as well.
Right. So yeah, lots of stuff to talk about. So, all right, let's move on to software news before we.
Yeah, that was yes. We're gonna blast through these ones, I think. So
yeah,
we'll go as quick as we possibly can. So to start off, do you have any app picks, anything that came out this week, or anything that you've played around with that you want to give a little bit of airtime?
Probably not off the top of my head.
That's all right.
See. Well, okay, yeah, let's talk about YouTube Pro. YouTube Pro came out. So this is from the guys who made SuperTube. I know some people are upset that it wasn't a direct update to SuperTube. Somewhat understandable. Now, but I want to take a little contrarian position here. I am not against developers completely redesigning an app and redoing things and then charging again for it. I don't believe just because you buy an app for 99 cents, you have a lifetime upgrade for it, and that's it. We could discuss whether it's smart or not in the long term for developers to do that. But, you know, some developers I've spoken to have mentioned before about doing this, that when an app gets completely rewritten or significant changes, you know, charging another buck for it or something. I want to leave that up to the audience and the market to decide if that's a smart decision, but I am not, on principle, opposed to it. I don't know. It's like... Well, I think developers
I'm quite curious to hear from our audience actually there as well. Just people in the chat room while Dan's sort of talking. Give us your thoughts on that one.
They're going to probably be opposed. And that's fine. That seems to be the consensus a lot of people were kind of upset about. On the other hand, I don't consider 99 cents for an app that I use regularly to be a deal breaker. When I know a lot of work that goes into what developers are doing and stuff, it's incentive for them to keep doing it. I understand arguments going both ways. So I'm going to say it that way. Not 100% behind this. And I'm saying, let's see what happens. You know, if the app fails and it doesn't sell well, then it wasn't a smart strategy. But I believe in letting the market decide these things. So if the market says it's okay to do this, people will pay for it, then that's business, you know. So, but SuperTube or YouTube Pro is a redesign. Basically, it does have some new features on board, but it's actually a really nice YouTube app. It's especially good for those of you who wanted a replacement for MetroTube. And so these guys have created. Now, I want to be clear here: the guys behind SuperTube and YouTube Pro have created their own codecs and system that re-encodes the video and stuff. It's really impressive back work that they've done. I think that's partly why they've decided to charge for this in the extra 99 cents.
Yeah.
And there is a free version at that. But this isn't just like they just plug into YouTube and that's it. They're just giving a new interface. They've done some really innovative back work. I think Jay knows a little bit more about this than I do as far as the technical details. But
yeah, so I don't know the full details as to what they went into, but suffice to say that having tried to spend some time developing with YouTube and trying to basically convince that API to play nicely with streaming high quality videos to anybody, the SuperTube guys in particular that have actually managed to figure out a consistent way to poll YouTube and get a high quality download, whether or not it goes against what Google supposedly licensed you to do, I've got huge respect for, because you've got to, in some cases, you'd have to write your own video decoding or some kind of codec system to actually deal with it, because I can't personally find a way to cheat the YouTube site into giving me the correct link so we can just use the existing one. So the stuff that they've done and I've played around with YouTube Pro, the stuff that they've done with it is, for me, well worth the extra money. But some will argue that the functionality was kind of already there in in SuperTube.
Which is fine, you know, so then stick with SuperTube. They're going to continue to update it as far as I know, and I don't see, you know, if you don't find it compelling enough for 99 cents for the new UI design and some of the other changes, and don't pay it. Or just get the free version. I mean, there are options here for people. And like I said, I'm not a man of many means financially, but I don't find 99 cents for apps to be, I don't think twice about it. I honestly don't. If I really like the app or I think the developer is good, and mind you, I sometimes get these apps, you know, kind of for free where I can like sideload them, but that's a weird thing because I could only have 10 slots to do that. I'm always beta testing things, but
just swapping things in and out.
But if I like the app, even if I have a zap of it on my hard disk, I will still give the dev 99 cents for it because it's not killing me, and I feel it was worth it. Now, I can understand if it's $2.99 and it gets higher up. Okay, now you're talking, okay, it's a couple dollars here, but 99 cents, $1.49.
Still cheaper than Starbucks.
Yeah, especially New York City here. I mean, everything. I paid. Let's talk about Nokia Drive for a moment. How it doesn't route you through tolls, which is horrible. New York City, it's $6.50 per toll through a bridge. So I had to pay $13 the other day because of Nokia Drive. That hurt. Okay, pay 99 cents for an app does not hurt me. So.
There you go. Right, my app pick this week. I'm actually going to go with an app which we have talked about before. It's called Free Music Cloud. For anyone that hasn't used it already, I'm pretty sure it links into a service that I've seen before, and has for some reason escaped my head as to what it was. But it's a little place where people can go and upload different music tracks, and effectively it lets you download these sort of music tracks just for offline. Again, it's completely free, or stream through the standard Mango media player, and it's just a little app that, to be honest, I've only found myself using it a couple of times, but every now and again when I'm sort of a little bit bored of what's on my Zune directly, and I kind of want to listen to something that's completely bizarre, completely random that I haven't even tried before, this Free Music Cloud has been a nice little place to go, and I've found actually a couple of artists that I've started listening to as a result. It's a free app, again, all about free music. It's completely free, and the fact that you can download the music to sort of listen to offline again and again, I'm a big fan of. The developers clearly put in quite a bit of time. I even picked up a little Skrillex track there in my listing, which I hadn't quite downloaded the EP of yet. So thoroughly recommended if you want to go and just if you're into your music and you want to try listening to a couple of strange music artists that you might not have heard of before. Free Music Cloud is the way to go. So that's my recommendation for the week.
Also, I want to point out Fourth America got a really nice update. Now it's got push notifications and live tile, which is exceptional. It was funny. I was out with the girlfriend at a restaurant where we both frequent and check in all the time. And I was the mayor, and she checked in and knocked me out. And then, it was a few seconds later, I got the notification. It pops right up the toast notification. It's like, oh, but the GPS especially works much better now too, as far as locating where you are. So that app just continues to be an exceptional. Now it's surpassed, I think, the official Foursquare app with the toast.
Oh wait, no, it has. Jeff has put in the work and he's delivered. Oh, Gandalf, he's a brilliant developer, and in so many different ways he supports the community. But I won't go into my little slight crush on him.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah, it's all good. not in a weird way. The other thing we want to talk about this week, this is going to one of the software news. I'm actually going to skip over. I was going to talk about the 4chan reader that got through, but I went to open it and was just not impressed with the app itself, so I don't feel that it needs to be talked about particularly.
But there's another app, Image Board Browser, which will be linked. It's actually in the marketplace. Yes, that's in the marketplace now, and the update should be going live pretty soon. The update's a nice one. That one you can add image boards directly to it, including 4chan, and that one is actually designed exceptionally well. That works. Beautiful design, very metro. It does. It's got you can pin your groups to the start screen. It does animated GIFs. It allows you to save things, allows you to respond. And so that's a really nice app. And so I definitely recommend that one. Plus, it's free as opposed to 99 cents. So Image Board Browser is going to be the really nice app. And that seems to be the way around this stuff where you allow the user to add in the website. And
Cool. So the other things we've got to talk about then is the Deep Shining HD7 ROM.
So this is a little controversial, actually. Some people... Now, I haven't confirmed this, because it has its own marketplace, which is actually really nice looking. It's a Silverlight app, and it looks just like the real marketplace, but it's Deep Shining's own personal marketplace. And they can put on homebrew apps through his server. It gets delivered to the device. Now, it will alert you to updates, so you can check for those, but you have to uninstall your app first, then install the new one. So it can't overwrite the current homebrew app. But still, it's an impressive method for delivering a homebrew directly to the device itself as opposed to plugging in. So that's pretty nice. I'm a little unsure about some of the software on board, if there's actual wares there. I hope not. If so, our apologies for covering it. We don't want to actually promote piracy. And I haven't had a chance to actually, do my HD7. It's actually kind of a big project to get these kind of ROMs on there. So, but it's
we should also caution people as well that there's obviously no control over this marketplace. So what apps are available and how much they can access your personal information it's like being on an Android device. There's no control. So
so this is definitely on the fringes, but it's still impressive work. So, and it has 8107, and to be able to do all that on the HD7 is pretty nice actually. So
Cool. We get asked every week, and I'm gonna jump to this. You're right.
I just sneezed.
Okay, that's fine. I thought someone had stabbed you.
Yeah, felt like it.
So the other thing we're going to talk about is we get asked this every week, and I wanted to come on to it. The status quo of Skype was brought up this week.
Right.
We're not going to beat it to death because you know what, everyone wants to know about Skype, and everyone wants to know when it's coming. But what we did get out of this week was that, as we suspected, we're going to get an app first, and then we're going to get integration into the OS. Now, for me, the bit which I took from this, which I was happy about, is that the app is still coming. We're not just going to get this integration to the OS and someone's forgotten to hit publish on the app. But it's taking its time now, considering this thing was announced and almost the concept was shown at Mix last year. That's April. It's taken its time to come to market. I'm hoping there's a good reason for that and that it's going to be a fantastic implementation and we'll be happy with the app. Or it could just be that when Microsoft took over Skype, they thought, oh, actually, we're going to send in some of our guys and do this slightly differently. What do you think on this one? Are you just desperate for Skype, or are you a bit happy to wait a bit longer on?
Oh, no, I definitely would like Skype. Even I'm not a huge Skype user, but I think both for the platform, this is sort of like the Angry Birds thing where it's more of a badge of honor to have it than perhaps actually using it. So even front-facing cameras, I find myself using it very infrequently, but I'd rather it be there than not be there, and that's how I feel about Skype. I think it should be there, but yes, Microsoft seems to be I don't want to see taking their time. That's unfair to them. I think they definitely want to get this out, and they're working hard on it, but I think they're trying to be more deliberate in how they do things, and so they're not pushing stuff out there like Android and Google, where they just get it out there. Google, their stuff's in beta forever. I think Microsoft wants to kind of get this out and do it right. I can't speak to when it's coming out, what the delay is, why that is. It just is. So there was a rumor from over in Sweden. There's a guy at Microsoft there, and he was basically saying some big apps are coming real soon. The next couple of weeks. Keep an eye out. Now, it was unclear if he meant Skype or he's talking about Swedish-specific apps. But put it this way, Mobile World Congress coming up in February.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see it announced there or something, wouldn't it?
I think it's a good time for Microsoft to show off a couple things there, including maybe start talking about Tango, Skype. Don't be surprised if you start seeing rumblings right around there for some of this stuff. That's my guess. So.
Cool. The other thing we've got to talk about in software this week is Microsoft's patent for this new GPS technology. It's designed to help keep pedestrians safe. I really like this. I remember reading the story and thinking this is a clever little bit of technology. The idea is it uses the location-based services that we will know and love, but using a bit of sort of it uses knowledge of safe neighborhoods and higher crime neighborhoods to try and plot the safest way home. The idea being that way you can use Bing Maps and you won't get mugged or stabbed in an alleyway. I'm a big fan of that. That's a benefit to having a phone, especially if I'm going to be standing with the phone out in front of me, saying, "Hey, come and nick this phone off me." And it was just a little interesting story that came around that Microsoft are putting a little bit of work into something a bit different, a little bit unique. Because I can't honestly say that I've heard of anyone using this idea of technology before.
Yeah, well, as we get more into GPS, location, augmented reality, I think you're going to start seeing, some innovative thinking. Now, there's no evidence that they're actually implementing this into Bing yet, but that's something potentially that they're going to do. We know a lot of times they come out with patents for things, but they don't actually use them, or at least it's a couple of years before it gets used. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually gets incorporated. But sure, it's sort of thinking outside the box a little bit and trying to think of ways of using location technology to improve people's lives and, for directions and stuff. So it is kind of an interesting thing to see Microsoft working on this. But, I'm constantly impressed with the Bing team and what they've been doing. So I'm not too surprised either to see this coming from them. They've been doing a great job so far.
And it's a nice way to go and compete with Nokia Maps that I have to admit has become my primary navigation device because it's more accurate. The maps are actually correct, whereas Bing Maps in some places aren't. Speaking of Nokia, let's just go back to our hardware news. George this week has put up his review of the 710, which seems to be very positive. Danny, you've talked a little bit about the 710, about your opinions on it, how you feel it, where it sits in terms of the phone. What I really want to know, you've had a bit of time on with it, and a while back you and I had a podcast where we talked about where we'd rate each device. Would you choose a Lumia 710 or would you choose the Radar?
See, it's a little unfair. The Radar is definitely, in a lot of ways, a better device. It has a better rear camera. It actually has a front camera. I would say the build quality is, well, it's definitely a little bit better, but it's hard to compare the two. They're going for different design aesthetics. The Radar is metal mostly, or has a lot of metal to it with a unibody design, whereas Lumia 710 is more of a plastic body. That's not actually a criticism, though. The 710, with its rubbery back, is a lot lighter, and I don't feel like I'm going to drop it. The Radar is very slippery, actually, and I've had it slip on my hands a couple of times. No, because it's so rounded and smooth that it's like, and it has this weight.
Kind of like making a phone call on a macro or something.
Yeah, a little bit. But I don't like comparing them. I'll be honest. I think they're, the Radar is slightly better phone, but that's not to say the 710 has some really compelling features to it. I find the screen phenomenal. I do like the physical keys. Audio quality, this is important. It is a phone after all.
It is a phone.
It is very good. When I was on the phone the other day with someone, they said I sounded exceptionally well, and that's important. Reception's been nice. It's fast. You guys hopefully saw my video of showing how fast the screen rotation is, which I think is more tied to the accelerometer being faster as far as detecting movement. But it makes a difference for me. When I go to message on my 710, it's a lot quicker, and I noticed that. Here's the deal, though. They're different targeted groups. And Nokia said this, that this is a beachhead for all different price ranges that they're going for. 710 is low end, the 800 is mid, and the 900 is going to be their top. And they're targeting all those. The 710 is priced lower than the Radar. Now, we just ran a story about Costco, which is a pretty big chain around, in the United States, is selling the device without contract on T-Mobile for $269. I've never heard of a brand new smartphone selling that low without a contract. That is exceptionally low. And that's top. You can already just buy it now for $350, which is very low. Now, put that into context. Something like the Samsung Focus S and a Titan also for $500, $550. You may be able to find it lower. But obviously, Nokia is definitely going for a low price point here. You can get this phone easily for free, whereas the Radar is still, Radar is $50 and stuff like that. It's not a huge difference, but it is a difference. And so they're targeted differently. I would hate to choose between the two because they offer different things. But the same
you're Dan Rubino, you can just buy both.
Yeah. Now, one thing to consider is the 710 is micro SIM on the back there. There is no expansion, so it's but I'm using it. I'm using it every day.
Nokia Drive and Nokia Maps and Nokia Music and Nokia.
Yeah, Nokia Drive is, like I said, Nokia Drive is good for free, but when it routes me through toll roads without a choice and there's no traffic info.
Yeah, well, it was designed in the EU where we don't have to worry about that as much.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. It's not bad, but I don't really want to use it too much. But it is good for what it does. I mean, it is a nice app. But Nokia's good, man. I like the 710. I'm using it, and I'm going to continue using it over the Radar for at least a significant time. No tethering. That stinks. I do have tethering.
Yeah, no, I do miss that on the 800.
Now that's coming. They're going to do a software update, but still. Now the 710 for people who are new and aren't finicky to smartphone. This is good for people who have a flip phone, want a smartphone, but don't want to think about it. The 710 is a great deal. It's getting outstanding reviews from users. So sure, I actually like it. I'm going to continue to use it.
Good stuff.
So.
And I say I'm quite keen to. I might go out and see if I can find one of these devices because I quite want to play with it and try out this the physical buttons at the bottom, this sort of rocker design that's there. I quite want to see that.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. I actually do prefer it sometimes. It has its benefit, that's for sure.
Okay, we're on to talking points now, and to the tail end of the podcast. Specifically, I'm gonna start with the negative because I feel if I get this out of the way, then I can just let you talk and I can fall asleep if I want to. So prepare for me to be a little bit bitter. We had an app was published this week, and if you haven't already looked at it on the marketplace, there is another WPCentral app. It was developed by, I think it was Dark Codes or something along those lines. It's a third-party RSS reader, and I want to preface this entire thing by saying, first of all, up front, we've no issue with people who want to go and create RSS readers for the site. You know, an RSS feed, is there for a reason. It's for you to play around with and for people to pick up a phone development and think, oh, I'm actually going to try writing an app for using an RSS feed. Great, go for it. Absolutely, it's a great place to start. But the issue is, for those who remember back when we tried to release version 1 of our app, Microsoft denied it and said that because we were using the Windows logo in our app, which is actually just part of the WPCentral logo at the time, we weren't allowed to submit. We were turned down for certification, and it was sent back to us. This was the official app of our site, and now we've got this unofficial RSS reader that's gone ahead and submitted itself, or the developer submitted it using our logo, and it's got through. Now, putting aside for 1 second how ridiculous it is that we're not the only people experiencing this, and the marketplace submission rules are not consistent at all at the moment. Putting that aside, the issue is that if the entire point of this is to protect copyrights and to protect logos, allowing a third-party app that's a simple RSS reader to use the logo of the site that it's, the logo of the site that it's trying to mimic or it's pulling down information from, is flying directly in the face of that entire marketplace policy in the first place. Now, I don't want Microsoft to go ahead and change the way the application process or submission process works. And I agree that there should be people behind it rather than going through a checklist of an automated system. But it just seems like the people who are being trained aren't being trained quite properly. And this comes back to a lot of people are expecting Carbon. Carbon for Windows Phone is coming very soon, and they've been trying to get theirs through the marketplace as well. And they actually had 4 times. This is ridiculous. The first time was they had some legitimate problems. Absolutely fine. Second time, and this is my favorite, their app did not appear to be did not appear to be functional at first download. I'm guessing because it's a Twitter client and you have to sign in to Twitter. Every other Twitter app on the marketplace has got through with that principle, and Carbon have been turned away for it, which proves that these testers are not being trained properly, or that there's no cohesion between what one tester will accept and what another will reject. It's madness. It's absolute madness. And the fact that if they were going to find that as a problem in the first place, that should have all been in one report. You should have had the guy should have had a full list. Carbon would be able to say, okay, we've got these to fix. Also, we need to make it clear that they've got to sign to Twitter. Also, we can't submit to these marketplace regions. It seems like instead they're testing up to a point, stopping, and then rejecting it, instead of testing the whole way through the script and returning every single error so that we can just focus on getting the app to the users as quickly as possible. And it hurts. It hurts the consumers. It hurts the developers. It hurts Microsoft from the developer's perspective, because we just think, why are we bothering jumping through all these hoops if you're not going to enforce it properly and if you're not going to make our lives a bit easier? And that's my little rant out of the way. But there needs to be some cohesion. Microsoft need to sort that out, because if they're going to have these strict marketplace rules, they need to start actually employing them. And I'm going to stop there.
Yeah, I mean, now we can sort of take a little bit of solace in the fact that just because it passed certification for that app, it's going to probably fail on resubmission if they ever do an update. Now, that's things too, because a lot of times people put apps through and they get through for a while, and they'll have 2 updates, and then a third one, it finally fails because it violated something that it should have failed for in the first time around. But now users are stuck with, an app that needs fixing, and the developer can't get it through because of some weird violation. Yeah, the human element is tough here. Obviously, training is involved. It's, it is difficult to get consistency. And I think it's a bad thing. Something Microsoft needs to work on. I guess I'm not surprised by it. I think the Apple marketplace probably has the same issues. People make mistakes, and so it's unfortunate. They can try things to reduce it, but it's going to be there.
Let's go with something. Should we just try and put some positive marketplace news out there? I'm going to announce it now. Everyone who uses the WPCentral official app, version 2 has passed certification and should be published to the marketplace in the coming hours. There's an announcement post coming on very, very soon if Daniel can get around to doing the video. But version 2 will be with you, hopefully, by the time you wake up tomorrow. Comments and all features. So that's the announcement within hours. Hopefully, as long as Marketplace updates and isn't late like it was today. So there's your little announcement. There's some good news. Back to bad news. Sprint's beef with Windows Phone. I'm going to let you talk about this one, Daniel.
Oh, what? You want to talk about the app?
Yeah, no, I was...
Sorry.
This is the thing. You can tell it's getting to the end of the podcast. No, we had the issue this week, or the story of Sprint not being too enthusiastic about Windows Phone.
This was kind of garbage. I've been a Sprint customer for almost 13 years, I think. So, I speak as someone who pays. Now, granted, I'm a zero plan, so I don't pay that much. And they'll probably be happy to get me off of them. But screw them. I'm actually really pissed about this because it's one thing for a company to not believe in an OS or platform or not want to invest in it. I disagree with that decision. But that's their right to make that decision, and they got to think, Sprint's a smaller company, they got to think where to put their money. I'm okay. To go publicly, so with this and sort of, say this is sort of the same problem I had with Verizon. Now, perhaps Sprint was just responding to, the countless claims of, why aren't you doing this? Why? And then they finally said, well, this is why. And so maybe that's it. But it just seems like I don't like when companies publicly throw Microsoft under the bus here. And plus... Going back to it also seems like a weird decision because you pointed out that the Arrive had poor reviews or returns and all this. And that would be a good argument if it had evidence to back it up. But they didn't back it up with any evidence. And the evidence we have, customer reviews on their own website and from other sites like Amazon, have been exceptional for that device. Everybody's really happy with it. And we're seeing that across with all Windows phones. It's hard to find any Windows phone that has less than 4 stars out of 5 on any wireless site. And so it's a weird thing for them to say. And they kind of shoot themselves in the foot here. As far as I can tell, this is how carriers did this, right? AT&T got all the devices. T-Mobile came across and said, we'll take the HD7. And so AT&T didn't get it. And then T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint were left, well, what's left on the table? Okay, Sprint's like, we'll grab the Arrive. And then...
Which is a great phone as well.
It's yeah. Verizon was like, we'll get the trophy. And then that was it. And so Sprint's problem is they just need more phones. If they got 2 or 3 Windows phones, it would be they could see better sales. And the Arrive is an older phone now. It's Gen 1. And I love the Arrive, but, people got to move on. And so grab a Gen 2 phone. Grab 2 of them. Give people some choice. Start promoting this stuff. And guess what? You'll start to see it sell. They're taking on this, martyr complex about we can't do it ourselves. And okay, but at least try a little bit. And so I just find their arguments a little bit, it's up there with Verizon. And we can talk about Verizon too. They're doing the same. Will both companies get a Nokia device? I think, when the 900 starts selling really well in AT&T and, this catches on, you'll see Sprint, Verizon change the tune a bit. But this leaves a bitter taste in my mouth. I'm even considering dropping Sprint now just because I have little reason to stay with them. And it's a shame because I actually like their service. I'm okay with them. I'd rather have them than Verizon actually. But sorry guys, it's you gotta actually try too. And they're not doing a very good job with Windows Phone. So I feel bad for people on Sprint, and my girlfriend's one of them. She's considering now going to T-Mobile because she kind of likes the Radar or the 710. She thinks they're both good phones. And what's she going to do? She can't wait for Sprint forever, so.
Yeah, no, and that's the perfect way to lose customers. And they won't realize until all of a sudden the few people that they did have on Windows Phone have just got up and left. And it's like, okay, so that OS actually is something worth supporting. But I think what we'll see, I think I agree with you. I think that if the Lumia 900 kicks off and, it takes off really well, the hero marketing works, I think they'll jump on it. And as soon as the exclusivity is not there anymore, it'll be, oh yeah, we want that phone. Oh, and by the way, you can make it in red for Verizon and Sprint can have whatever the color they like.
Well, I think, I was going to say, I think people need to start voting with their wallets here. If you're on Sprint, I'm sorry, you should really start considering going with AT&T. I almost hate saying that because I don't really like AT&T that much, but let's face it, they're going to have 4G LTE phones. Now, Sprint, AT&T's LTE network is not nearly as robust and spread out as Verizon's. but it's better than Sprint.
Is that a fact, or is that an assumption?
No, that's true. Verizon actually has a much more LTE coverage. I mean, even Verizon's here in New York City and elsewhere, but AT&T is just starting to put up the towers now. AT&T's LTE network is still pretty shallow as far as penetration, but it's much better than Sprint's, which is barely even, Sprint just announced that they're doing an LTE thing, and WiMAX is sort of a joke. And so if you want a 4G next generation stuff, you gotta go with AT&T. And I know it's more money and everything, but you're going to get better service, you're going to get better phones, and if that's what you want, eventually you're going to have to start making the jump. And obviously, I think Sprint is just, it's time to leave them. And that's someone, like I said, I'm 13 years. Sad. Yeah, it really is. But that's what they want, so that's what they're going to get. Okay,
back to a high point. The last item that we have on our talking points, and it's really a mention rather than a talking point, I thought I'd just sort of bring it up on the podcast. For those of you who want me to buy you a drink or want to meet myself and Rich and living in the Britain or London area, there is the Windows Phone User Group London meeting on January the 31st, and I've decided that we're going to go along. Myself, Rich will be there. Lawrence Gripper, the guy behind BBC News Mobile, is said to appear. The guy behind the Ad Duplex system is there. It's going to be quite a big meetup, and it's a nice little place in a little pub in London. Basically, if you're in the London area or you're even remotely nearby, Sash can get a hotel, and you want to come along just for a social group and a meetup, it'll be a chance to talk to us about developing or about anything you really want. It'll be a chance also to, if you just want to try out a bit of Windows Phone development or improve your Windows Phone development, it'll be a great chance to chat to some of the experienced guys. I'm actually quite keen to have a chat with Lawrence because I've got a lot of respect for that guy. He's done some very, very cool stuff. And I want to sort of have a chat to him about how he's found developing with certain components that I've seen him use and use mobile. So yeah, and then I might also have a chat to Alan Mendelvik, the guy from Ad Duplex, see if he can get me some more revenue from his model with the commercial ads. And as I've always said, there'll be beer. So come along if you want to come and have a little chat with us, and it'll be good. And no, Rene, chat is not British for beer. We acknowledge both. We have a chat, we have beer, and there'll probably be peanuts and some crisps. That'll be good. But yes, feel free to come along if you're in the area. Which brings us to ready for questions. So chat room, get your questions ready now. If you've got any questions for us regarding beer or anything, go ahead. And I'm going to read out the comments from last week, assuming my internet can hold out. Oh yeah, sorry, crisps are British for chips, Rene. Yes, that is a thing, because we don't call chips French fries because they're not French.
Yeah, I always find that kind of weird, but it's okay.
It's mad. It's mad to me.
Right.
They say what?
Crisps and chips. Anyway, so let's go
crisps
on.
It's crisps. It's crisps. It's a thing. Sorry, I have to apologise. The internet's been a bit slow tonight, so I'm trying to get to the comments, but I should have preloaded it already. So I will hopefully get my internet to behave. In the meantime, people can carry on talking about crisps and chips all they like. But you should come down, man. You should come over to London and just for a day and come and join us for the meet group. You can do that.
Who, me?
No. Yeah, you could come across. You get little transatlantic flight. It's not a big deal, right?
Wait, when is it? When is that whole thing going on?
January 31st.
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not. Oh, for a brief second, I thought you were about to say, "Oh, you know what? I'm in London that weekend." How do I not realize?
I'll look for an excuse to go to London anytime. I'll see what my plans are if we can afford to do that.
Go for it. Okay, so here's the comments from last week. One from Power180 and then a whole load of numbers. For dual core, don't we have to wait for the chip to be integrated with LTE, the same chip that BlackBerry are waiting for? Interesting question. Are you aware of any limitation on dual core having LTE chips? Or, LTE not being able to handle without certain dual core chips?
No. The only thing I could point out is just with the Titan 2, that was impressive that it has its own CPU dedicated for the camera. That explained why when I took 16 megapixel photos, I couldn't tell there was a difference between 16 megapixel and 8 megapixel. It was instant. And I was like, why is that so fast? And it turns out it's got a dedicated processor. So in a way, we're going to have a dual core phone.
It does make me wonder as well. Couldn't they do 1080p recording if the software was there?
But it's the OS. That's the problem. So the OS doesn't do the 1080p stuff. So we won't see that, I think, till Apollo. Maybe with Tango they'll add it. Who knows? As far as the LTE thing, the LTE is really interesting because we did speak extensively with Microsoft about that, and Nokia and HTC, and we have a post up about that in the Titan too. But yeah, there's no switch for LTE. It's just going to be on. It's going to be smart. It's going to dynamically change. The user won't have to think about it, which is nice, unlike Android, who basically have to manage their connections. There's a whole connection section in Android. Turn on, off, all this kind of stuff. Windows Phone, it'll just manage it itself. And so once again, Microsoft took their time with it, but they did it smartly. So LTE is going to be really nice on Windows Phone. When I was actually running on the LTE network with the Titan 2, and it was very fast. It felt like I was on a really good Wi-Fi network. And that was in Vegas at the time, where LTE was kind of getting crushed a little bit with, everybody using it. But I'm very impressed with the speed. So no, LTE is no joke. It's going to be really nice, and I'm confident the battery life should be pretty decent on Windows Phone with it. It's going to be way better than Android, as usual.
Good stuff. Next comment was, lovely podcast, guys. Great job from Pure Vibes. Thanks very much. CAH 000 was saying, interesting comments about the barriers to live TV streaming on the platform, but wondered how the Sky News app manages to do it. His name was Chris, it turns out. So we were talking last week about there was some barriers as to how easy it was to stream videos. There is some capability within the SDK to take MP4 files if you have or a source which is written in MP4 files, and those will stream and will display in high quality. I imagine that's what the Sky News app has done. I haven't used it in too long to remember. Otherwise, they could have written their own codec if they decided to. Then we have from Honky McGee, great name by the way. Daniel, he heard you mention in passing that the IS-12T isn't compatible with Verizon. So it isn't so.
No, I mean, Verizon has a weird open network policy where you can technically bring CDMA devices to their network. It's a bit of got to jump through some hoops. I'm not familiar with the process. I'm not sure if many people do it, but I guess technically you could do that. The IS-12T, it's also got GSM on board. I mean, it's not a bad decision. I don't know if I'd go for it, though. I think there are other phones I'd rather bring. I mean, there's no other CDMA phones, so I suppose that's the limitation. Yeah, IS-12T is an interesting phone. I'm not sure I'd go through all that way. But if you really want to, yeah, I suppose you actually can do that with Verizon, because they do have, unlike Sprint, a policy by which you can bring other phones to their network. But it's I'm not too familiar with it. It's a bit of a thing.
Well, Honky was saying that he was debating getting his girlfriend that one. Honky, if you go ahead and do that and you end up bringing the IS-12T over and hooking it up to Verizon, get in touch with us. Let us know how it went. It was something I think a lot of
we'll do a post on it, sure. But explain the process and stuff, because even I'm unfamiliar with it. Their policy regarding Open CDMA is it's a bit fuzzy, and I haven't heard much about it, lately. So, but it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Right, let's go on to questions in the chat room. There's a lot of talk about Christmas chips and whether fried potatoes should be called, so I'm going to try and skip over that. People are asking if the Nokia Lumia 900 will exist without the AT&T branding. That's from Edward Mendoza. He's then said that Nokia have actually replied to him and said that there's no details on that right now. I would imagine that at least for 6 months, the Lumia 900 will have the AT&T branding because of the exclusivity. What else have we got?
The Mendel. Someone asked about the Samsung Mendel. Yeah, surprisingly, Samsung was absent from CES without any new devices. I do have a few photos from the Samsung booth. Nothing to reveal, except that they had one Focus S on display amongst a sea of Android devices. I mean, it was literally one out of, I would say, probably 30 phones that were on display. A lot of those 30 phones, of course, weren't all different. They were redundant. But, Samsung was not there pimping Windows Phone at all. And they definitely didn't have the Mendel, which tells me the Mendel is still on its way but wasn't ready. Perhaps we'll see something at Mobile World Congress with that or at a later announcement. But I think the Mendel will be Samsung's 4G LTE phone on AT&T. That's what I can tell you. I don't have any other details about it. We've also seen the Samsung Monument, which may be the same device, listed in some gaming statistics. So yeah, Samsung's a little bit of a blur right there, but expect their own LTE device. I'm sure they have something compelling as well. So
cool. Gilbert Alexis asks both of us, do we have any suggestions on the feature suggestions website? I put one into one of the unofficial ones some time ago, but I don't think it ever got picked up. Do you put anything on that feature suggestions website?
What do you mean? The Microsoft?
Yeah, Microsoft's one.
Yeah, I haven't used it myself, but it's it's a nice site, and they have the app, of course, for it. So,
I should check that out. Actually, it's something I've been on my list of things to do, and sort of keeps getting pushed down. SQL Variant asks, will the new WPCentral app be able to keep more than 2 days worth of posts loaded? Yes, you can load more repeatedly in the news, not for the other sections just yet, but you can basically just keep going back and back and back as long as you like. It just loads it into a big long list. And the paid version also has an offline list feature, which basically means you can save articles for offline reading later and then get rid of them when you finished reading them. So that was a big requested feature that I've managed to get in for this one. What else have we got? What is our opinion on initial apps like Break and Vivo not getting any updates in over a year, or like how the Foursquare and Twitter apps are also quite out of date, have seen no updates? That's from Konstantin Litovsky. What's your thought there? I
don't use those. I thought Vivo did have an update at some point. I thought it had been updated a couple of times, but we've talked about this before with the big media companies and everything outsourcing their development of apps and how they lag behind. You don't get as much attention. You try to email them and you get poor to no responses. It's a bit of a shame, but this is sort of why we champion, and I champion specifically independent developers, because they're a lot more responsive. And so in this regard, it's tough. I know a lot of you guys have been trying to contact these companies, get a response out of them. A lot of times you get the runaround. It's definitely unfortunate, but perhaps it tells you something about the companies you're dealing with. If they're going to give you poor responses, maybe you should not use their services. I know it's a little unfair to say if you do rely on it, but that's the game right there. So
that's very true. That's about does us for questions, and I am about at the point of falling over. So Daniel, take it away.
Fair enough. You can find us all on Twitter at WPCentral. You can find myself at Malatesta77, George at Coppertop004, Rich Edmonds at Rich Edmonds, Jay at JT Bennett. You can find Paul at SegaCon, and Rafael Rivera, who's a little bit traveling around this week. That's why he's not here, but hopefully he'll be joining us next week. You can find him at Within Raphael, where he is very opinionated on everything. And of course, you can follow Matt at Rogue Code. Actually, we have a couple app or two to talk about with Matt later this week. He's got some neat stuff that he's been working on. It's been a Mobile Nations podcast. You can go to mobilenations.com for more great shows covering everything from mobile. And we do have plenty of podcasts now, including the Girls Gone Gadgets, which is always fun. And thanks to WP Central Store for sponsoring the podcast. We have some more reviews coming up this week for stuff on Windows Phone. And thanks for those great artists for the music, blah, blah, blah. And that is it. We'll be back next week sometime. We're still working on that regular schedule thing, but it'll happen eventually.
We almost had it this week, and then you went and had a life. What are you doing?
Oh, the holiday threw us off a little bit, so that's true.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King Day on Monday.
Holiday?
Yeah, Martin Luther King Day on Monday. That's why everything's
you Americans with your lucky extra holidays. We should also say thanks to Rene for joining us for the first part of the podcast for the CES discussion. You can find him at Rene Ritchie, where he occasionally tweets out things that I've emailed him during the day.
And he does, of course, all the Apple stuff at imore.com, which just got a redesign. Looks very nice. But thank you all for joining us, and we'll be back next week. Send us your questions and comments, and as always, we'll listen to them. Take care, everybody.